Hello and welcome back to the Football Unraveled. It's the weekly podcast on the deeper side of the beautiful game. I say weekly, but I think we have missed the last 40 odd weeks or so we aren't really doing a great job of keeping up with that. Apologies. But we have a fun episode today. We're going to be doing a heated debate. So we're falling into that trap of becoming like all of the other annoying football YouTubers who garner clicks, likes, and attention by immaturely bickering about nothing for an hour or so. But we have a really good panel to do that. So returning, we have our regular Owen MacDonald coming to the show. So how are you doing, Owen?
Very well, thank you. Very busy, very tired, and Fulham are...
Oh, sorry, Owen, I've just accidentally muted you.
The heated debate starts already. No, other than Fulham having a rather miserable start to the season, I'm quite well, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Looked at the table just a second ago, and hasn't been a great start to the season for you, I guess, has it?
No, not quite. Not quite where we were hoping for.
No. And we have also our regular Dr. John returning. How's it going, John? Thoughts on last week's exciting 0-0 at Selhurst?
Yeah, quite pleased with that, really. No, just sitting, waiting for the current Palace team plus the managers to be gradually disassembled by the more senior clubs.
Yes.
Until that time, we'll enjoy what's been quite a good season so far. But it won't last. It never does. And they'll come and pillage every single player, and we'll be back in the Championship next season, I guess.
I doubt
fingers
that.
Crossed. We're all hoping for that, yeah.
I doubt that. I think there's a cohort of teams that are fairly safe at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, right in the both in those.
Yeah.
Well, we're both battling for that 10th place spot at the moment, it seems, doesn't it? And then we also have the irregular David Stabler, my dad. How's it going, Dad?
Hello, Dan. I'm fine.
You're fine?
Yeah. I'm also, John and I shook hands on a 1-1 draw before last week's game, and we obviously filtered it through to the respective clubs because they didn't even bother scoring the goals, really. Yeah. So I think we were both happy with the 0-0.
That was fine. Yeah.
I think it was a fairly entertaining 0-0, as 0-0s go, but it might have just been because I was biting my nails off. But Mateta should have got a couple goals, Sarr should have got a couple goals, Minter should have got a couple goals. The referee, it was a strange refereeing performance.
Wasn't it?
He made bad decisions, I think, probably for both teams. But you know, we could argue about that in a different episode, I guess, maybe. So yeah, today we have a fairly loose format. So we have a series of topics that we're going to run through. Unfortunately, we don't really have the budget of other channels who have buzzers and lights and debating podiums of sorts. But basically, I'm just going to read out a statement to everyone on the panel. We can then do a thumbs up if we agree, a thumbs down if we disagree, or we can do a little hand signal if we are kind of 50-50 on the fence for that. So yeah,
and
each topic,
and obviously a discussion,
and then a discussion, yeah, and then we can debate it, and then we can.
Otherwise, it'd be a very short.
Well, maybe our listeners want that. I guess, who knows. But we each topic should be fairly contemporary, and relevant to current discussions in football governance. We're going to be looking at a few different issues. Perhaps some of us on the panel are going to be representing of the younger generation, looking to modernize the game and make progress with how we consume and regulate the sport. But I reckon that there is probably at least a couple of us who will be a little bit more conservative and maybe even a bit grumpy. But we've all looked at the questions. I think there are some topics that we're all a little bit on the fence for. And it might be that I can play devil's advocate on a number of them. So to encourage the discussion to continue, I guess. So yeah, let's dive right into the first topic. So the first thing we can debate is then the England manager should be English. And so I'm going to just put a little banner up at the bottom.
Very good.
So it's quite so yeah, maybe we can do our thumbs up. So who agrees with that then? Who disagrees? Who's on the fence? 50-50, me and John, and Dad and Owen, they disagree with that. So it's obviously quite a timely topic to discuss. We're early in the stages of Thomas Tuchel's reign as a manager. He's had a great set of results so far with 7 consecutive wins and 0 goals conceded. I think he's been brought in to do one job and one job only, to win the World Cup. But I guess for this topic, we're not really evaluating the performances, but we're going to perhaps tap into that rather nativist discussion on whether the manager of England should be in fact English. So, what do you guys think then, Dad? You can kick us off.
Well, you say we don't not evaluate the performances, but I think the performances are part of it in a way. Firstly, I don't think anybody cared that Serena Wiegman wasn't English and maybe that's just it's arguably not quite as big in the nation's mind as the England men's team, but I really don't think if Tuchel took us to the World Cup final next year, anybody would care that he wasn't English. I really don't think there'd be much argument at all about, oh, well, it doesn't really count because he's German. All the players are English. Managers have come in from all over the place. Personally, I don't care. I just want the England football team to win. I don't care that he's German at all as a manager.
What
I mean, the performances are great at the moment. Let's put it another way. We are actually the only team. No, there's 2 teams. There's Spain, who are the European champions, and England have both got similar records. They won every single game in the qualifiers without conceding a goal. That's almost unprecedented, really, for an England team at this point. But anyway,
Why did you say you were on the fence then, John? What are your thoughts there?
I just think that if, for a national team to have a manager who's from the same background, it wouldn't be British rather than English, would it? Because the rivalries are even stronger within the British Isles than they are outside it, in a sense. But I think if, we're advertising good English football, an English manager, not in a nativist or a kind of exclusive kind of way, but an English manager might be quite good. I'm on the fence because I don't want to go down the route of English nationalism. That would be a grave mistake, I think. And there's so much of it. It's a rising current in England just at the moment for all sorts of terrible reasons. So that's why I'm on the fence. But I just think if there was an English coach of good quality and who played progressive football, the kind of Gareth Southgate persona, who was also inclusive, I think that would be good. So I'm on the fence. I don't mind it being a German or a Brazilian or anything else, but it would be nice if from time to time, and we have had one recently, there was an English manager. I think it is part of the vibe. So I'm on the fence with it, really.
Owen, what are your thoughts? Why are you firmly against? Firmly disagreeing with the statement?
So, like David said, it's very much a case that I am not fussed who is leading the team. I think that if you have the skills to lead a group of players to success, then all power to you, and it shouldn't matter. But I think we should look critically about what goes into the England national football team. There are many, many junctures which don't involve all English people, all English resources, even as simple as the food they're eating, where they're training. Many of them play overseas. Many of the coaching staff are from overseas. And there's an argument even that the idea that nations are fixed, inherent parts of our world is a flawed one, because ultimately we're not in 10 AD. We're in 2025 and people are more fluid across the world and such. And so really, I suppose the next logical step would be a critique of the idea of even having national teams. But as we're not doing that just yet, as we're still in a world with countries, I think there should be a more relaxed idea about who is leading the team. You wouldn't say to Phil Foden or John Stones, well, we're going to ignore Guardiola's teachings because he's from Spain or even Catalonia. No. We've got to listen to only the English coaches. Well, of course not, because they've learned football from all sorts of people. They take inspiration from all sorts of people. So I think the fussiness over who the manager is a little bit misguided. And if we look at other nations which have moved on from this, they're having quite a lot. Once you get over that idea, it's not really a big deal. It's just, is this person good enough to lead the team?
My counter argument to that, I'm also of the view that a fixation on borders and nationalism and having a unique national culture that needs to be preserved, which it seems to be most of the debate constantly in the UK at the moment. There's always that kind of undercurrent. I never buy into that kind of argumentation, but when it comes to football governance, I think and it comes to the competition, I do think that is quite a valuable thing to have in football competition, where it's, as a country, we are putting ourselves up against another country to see who's best, purely in a competitive footballing sense. And I do think that, ultimately, if we're not necessarily presenting our best English players with our best English coaches, so I guess that for me just slightly dilutes the idea of what international football is, which is a competition between different countries competing against each other. And you look at, say, I think China have done this quite a lot in recent years, where they've basically imported a lot of Brazilian players into their leagues, and then they've reduced the amount of years that it takes to become a Chinese player to something like 5 years. And it means that half of the Chinese national team now was living in Brazil 5 years ago and Brazilian. And I do think there is something that slightly dilutes the fun of the international football when you start to when you kind of take something away from that. But I also do agree that we do live in a kind of a globalized world, and people move around the world nowadays, and ideas and knowledge and tactics move around, and maybe this is a part of it.
But equally though, it's never been against the rules to have if we stop diluting the rules. The rules have never said that the manager has to be from that country. So Roy Hodgson was Sweden manager back in the day. We've had Switzerland. Sorry, can't remember now. Yeah, it was Switzerland. Back in the day, it was. Managers have been fairly fluid in this regard.
Yeah.
Down the years.
Do you think we only know?
There was even a noise for Alex Ferguson becoming England manager at one point about 20 odd years ago. He wouldn't have counted because he was Scottish, but would that have mattered?
I think it would matter.
Well, it probably would. I think the rivalry between England and Scotland is so fierce, and the Scots have a lot of answering to do here, because Scottish nationalism I find almost as abhorrent as English nationalism. But I just think England v Scotland, it would be very, very difficult to have a manager who is English or Scottish managing the opposite team.
And yet, Ferguson did say quite a lot that because so many Man United players were in the England national team, he was quite invested in firstly looking after them, and secondly hoping England did well, because a good, big portion of the national team that were going to Manchester United and back and forth and such. On the idea of the sort of dilution element, I would say that whilst we do notice it in sort of more obvious terms, like clearly China wants to have a better football team, right? But equally, Owen Hargreaves was born in Canada and played in Germany when he was getting picked for England, and no one, and he also doesn't sound English, right? He's exactly right.
Canadian.
But no one when 2006 World Cup, he was one of our best players. He was probably the best out of all the golden generation, Gerrard, Beckham, Lampard set, right? Similarly, England as a nation is fine relying on its history of and their second, third generation and such be part of the national team. And obviously there's the racist element that don't like that. But in terms of the football side of things, no one bats an eyelid that England is quite fortunate to have quite a wide pool of players to draw.
But I think,
it's the
I think the difference there is if I think the argument is if you're born in a country and have national, then you're legitimately of that country, and so there's no argument there. But it is. It's a very, very. I mean, I was born in Scunthorpe, and I've never been back. I'm not from Scunthorpe
Right,
at all.
David.
And it's a
we may
lovely
have
town, no
Scunthorpe
doubt.
listeners, so we don't want to insult you.
But I've never been back, so it's a very, very flimsy thing. Your place of birth, and to hang your hat on that for the rest of your life is. I know
a modern identity.
Yeah, carry on.
I was going to say, a modern identity is difficult to have. A lot of people are born in one country, spend a lot of their childhood in another country, maybe moved in their teens to another country, and then, to then distinguish them into just a certain group, I think is quite a challenging thing to do. I mean, Thomas Tuchel has spent connection to this country, but I guess he's still German. But then, what is German? What makes someone German? I guess
And also, even ignoring that, like even if he never set foot in England, like Capello, right? Fabio Capello was England manager, didn't really speak English, clearly very Italian. But in some ways, they're not the one. They're the teacher, right? The tutor, the person imparting their knowledge to the players and helping them to be better for England. So in some ways, I don't see it as any different to if you found out that Harry Kane had gone to who would it be, like
Germany?
I don't know. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a like if he had contacted Jurgen Klinsmann and said, "I need help being a better striker for England," you wouldn't be like, "Right, Kane, get lost. You've been taught by the Germans now. You're not going to be one." Like it's I think a little bit different. Like Mbappe was just put in England. He's like, right, you're going to win the World Cup for us, Mbappe. You'd be thinking, okay, well, this is a little bit funny here because it's just taking someone and putting them in the England team. But it's someone imparting their knowledge to still the English football team, still English players to help them win, which I think is a bit different.
Well, they more fated British Olympians of the last 20 odd years, but he spent a lot of his training in America at doing altitude training in American training camps, and a lot of them do. So they spend a lot of their time in the at altitude in say in the Americas, learning from the Americans, doing all their training over there, then come over back here for the Olympic Games or whatever it is, and they are British, but all the training and knowledge that they've got for over the last 2 or 3 years to get to the peak point that they're at has been American.
And he was born in
tennis players, yeah.
Cricket
and I
players.
guess the birth thing is one thing, but also if you come over as a small child and you basically grow up and go through the system in this country, then you are from this country as well. My argument would have been if I'd lived in South Africa for the rest of my life. I went over at the age of 9, so I went through the school system in South Africa. I could arguably have played for South Africa if only they recognised my talent. but
David.
Exactly. But the what was I going to say? So, but it's the ones who come over when they're 22. And then in 5 years are playing for the new country that I disagree with. In whichever way around it works, I don't really agree with that.
But
Kevin, I was going to say that.
There's nothing under the surface here for me, and it's just come clear as we've been talking. I think if there is So back to the England manager. If there has been no connectivity with English football, either managing an English club or being involved in English football in some way, if you remember Scolari managing Chelsea 15 years ago, he just didn't have a clue about the English game, didn't understand it, looked completely out of his depth in a way that Tuchel certainly doesn't, because he's come and built a career in England. And I think, grafting someone on from a completely different culture, who've never worked in the Premiership or indeed any English football, don't know English players and their kind of patterns, and they're widely different cultures, absolutely right. I think that's when I would have more problem with it. So just to add to my opening statement, I guess.
So would that not be true anyway? Because that could be someone who's born in someone, you get the narrative.
Absolutely could.
Players
that's right.
who don't get on with their teammates and spend their time with their headphones all the time, and they just aren't in the team collective. That would also be someone that doesn't fit that. And I think Scolari, who's also, from what I've read about him, quite a, I don't want to say toxic individual, but he's not exactly the easiest to work with.
No, it wasn't.
And he's a bit certainly at a club like Chelsea, where you've got to be really on it to manage like John Terry and Drogba and Lam, like all these big names and such. Hence the fact we've had so many managers come in, and many of them have actually struggled to control that dressing room. But yeah, on the manager thing, I think you're quite right. Like obviously you need to fit with the, I don't think anyone's saying just hire anyone because they're the best, but once you've met that like criteria of are you good enough to manage a national team with the expectation of doing well at tournaments, say a second ago, in terms of players coming across at an older age, Kevin Peterson in the national cricket team for England, born in South Africa, and whilst he has that South African element to him, he also clearly was English, doing things for England, and as with many of his teammates, because like Andrew Strauss, born in South Africa, Jonathan Trott lived there for ages, Matt Trott, but
Alan Lamb.
So I think it's not an issue.
Peterson I struggled with a bit because he was the most South African of them, and he came over at an older age, and that my graph of where you should be when you start picking your national team. I think once you get to about 20, you're grown up in a country, and you are pretty, unless there are
I would say
reasons that you can't go back or whatever. But anyway, we're in danger of making, this is 23 minutes now.
Yeah, maybe move on. I was going to say I'm still slightly concerned about feeding into that argument of debating on whether or not someone is English enough. Because I feel like that is often that argument now, where it's even if someone is culturally English, brought up in the UK, and and they say, well, they're not actually English, and it's
it is,
yes. Maybe it's feeding in, but yeah, maybe let's move on to the next debate. I think we solved that issue, and I think after that debate, for sure,
nobody else.
For sure, England they're now gonna go and win the World Cup, and they're gonna beat Germany in the final, and Thomas Tuchel's gonna sing the national anthem probably as well in that final. Probably not, but
yes.
We'll go out in the group stages. All right. So for the next topic, we're going to look at the statement: the 3 p.m. blackout should be removed. So obviously, this relates to the blackout that there's never any Saturday 3 p.m. matches televised in the UK, and that is often painted as a way to protect the lower league attendances, so to encourage people to go out and attend those lower league matches and support more grassroots football rather than staying home and watching TV. And it's often a very contentious topic. It's a bit controversial. Everyone has their opinion on this. Let's see what we all think. So thumbs up if you disagree. Sorry, thumbs up if you agree. Thumbs down if you disagree.
What do we? It's blackout should be removed.
Should be removed. Thumbs up if you think it should be removed. Yes. John, what do you think? All right. Generational divides. There we go. Fantastic. All right. Owen, why don't you start?
Okay.
As you think it should be removed.
Yes. So I think that the way the game has developed has priced out millions of people from actually being able to go to a game of football. Fulham, my team, have recently added a new stand, and it has, thanks to the owners wants to try and recuperate some of the costs, has seen the cost of a ticket at Fulham skyrocket. It will cost almost £100 for me to go and see Fulham if I want to go and watch them on the off. If I want a season ticket, it will cost me thousands. And this is on top of actually getting to the stadium and making the time out in my working life and such to actually get to see Fulham in the first place. This makes it really unfeasible for millions of people in the country to actually access the games. And so having something on televised broadcast and such, which would allow people not to be sort of locked out of even being able to watch their team, would massively solve this issue. And I think as well, this would, I think that it would come through other reforms too. So obviously we need to improve pricing in general, and there's lots of things that would also need to happen alongside it. But there's lots of people who want to watch the game, but only so many who can get to the game, let alone afford tickets to the game. There should be more consideration for them being able to see teams play beyond that of ones at times over than 3 p.m.
Did you say thousands, Owen?
Thousands.
I mean, I have a premium Premier League season.
Thousands a year.
It's not
every year. I think people pay thousands.
Yeah.
It's not. But anyway, it's a lot of money. I'm not saying it's a lot, but it's nowhere near 1,000 for Brighton per year. Anyway, that's a moot point. It is a lot of money. I agree.
Okay, so counter arguments.
I just thought maybe London prices were far more than Brighton then. Right on the Thames. It's a lovely view.
Yeah, so I think the counter-argument for me is about minor football mainly. And you made a good point at the beginning about that, Dan. I think that summarised my view. I was a bit on the fence about this, but the more I was thinking about it over the last 10 minutes, the more I thought that the 3 p.m. blackout should not be removed. My local club, Worthing, and most of the supporters of Worthing are also Brighton supporters because it's very close and we're in that kind of catchment area. The Worthing attendances have built up from 350 when I first started going 20 years ago. As they've gone up through the leagues and they're in the National League South now, they're reaching 1,100, average 2,000 on a good day. That's a very, very good non-league attendance. If Brighton were playing at 3 p.m. and that was being shown, that attendance would be halved. I just know it. And that would be most unfair, that kind of thing. That's just one example. There'll be loads of examples up and down the country because often minor league clubs, so-called, we can have a debate about that, but you know what I mean, their supporters will also be supporters of the bigger clubs, Premiership, Championship clubs. And if that 3 p.m. blackout was removed and you had all those games or some of them live at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, I think it would really seriously impact further down the chain.
I agree. I also, John and I have come from a generation in which games weren't always televised, and it wasn't. I think there's an oversaturation of football on the telly, and it's kind of almost refreshing at 3 p.m. when you think we can listen to updates on the radio and go and do other things. And we're kind of, I think we're of the generation that are much more readily comfortable with that. And therefore you just sort of hear that, Brighton have gone another goal down or whatever at Wolves, blah, 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 by the radio or on without having to actually sit and watch every single kick of every single game throughout the season. And because we didn't grow up with that, I suppose we're far more comfortable with that.
Possibly.
Can I counter that by saying that, and you did acknowledge that this is perhaps a generational thing, maybe people of a younger generation They do want to watch as much football as they can,
Mm-hmm.
and they will find a way to do that. I honestly think that if you're under 40 and you want to watch a Premier League game, you will find a way probably to watch it. I think, and whether it's through piracy or a VPN or some dodgy link or something, I honestly think a lot of people will find a way to watch that game anyway. And I think it's the motivation to go to a grassroots or minor league game because you can't watch, because it's not that easy to access a football match. I think that is decreasing over time because it's getting easier and easier through these piracy and dodgy fire sticks and things. And from that also, I just like to point, because of that, we're fueling a piracy industry in the UK, and we're criminalizing people for watching these games. And it's the same with kind of attitudes towards, say, criminalizing drug use in the UK, or say the prohibition of alcohol back in the day. You then lead to these gangs that have set up illegal ways of kind of, selling alcohol or drugs, and, the gangs involved with drugs. And it's the same nowadays with, watching football, because people want to watch football, and it's fueled this piracy system, which, it's not great. But people feel like they're getting scammed, as Owen said. People are getting ripped off all the time, and so they're kind of going around the rules and bending the rules to try and watch these games anyway. So I just think that people are gonna watch those games. So I don't think it's protecting the minor leagues as much as we hope it does. I
think there's a real difference here. These are, if it's suddenly on Sky or TNT or even the BBC or ITV at 3 p.m, the kind of the numbers of people watching those games will increase by 10,000-fold. I take your point about piracy and all the rest of it. And if people want to watch games, even people my age will find a way of doing it through VAR and so on and so forth, and I know people who do that. But if you just unleash the floodgates, I think be careful what you wish for, because I think minor football in this country would die very, very quickly.
I agree.
I think
with that.
it's a binary between like having a 3 p.m. blackout or maintain. It's not like a choice between you've got to either keep the games behind bars or let the lower league game die. I think that you would be able to do things alongside it to help the lower league games. A massive part of that is the equity of football in the country. Like we're in a world where the Premier League has ridiculous wealth.
Oh yeah.
And the rest of the country basically picks up the scraps, and as you go further down the league, the worse the scraps get. That would also be addressed in a proper managed football economy where you've got actually clubs not having to barely scrape through the winter months because the pitch is falling apart and there's nothing to try and rescue the conditions of ground, or even worse, clubs that are affected by the climate crisis and end up with a flooded, waterlogged pitch which can't be used whatsoever. I think that this is separate from, as Dan was saying, the fact that people aren't able to watch games they want to watch and are sort of, because like we're sort of saying, if you want to, there's lots of people who don't support teams that they are close to, and there's an element of glory supporting and such, but it's also people who can't be at the game that day, people whose families have moved away, people maybe who want to watch football for other reasons, want to learn about the game and such, and want to see a favourite player or something. And for as much as it's important to raise the profile of the game and make sure every club in the country has that support and such, there is a want for people to actually watch the top end of the sport too. And the arbitrary barrier, I think, probably needs a bit updating, hence the reform that should probably be had for it.
But if you say, but if you say other, so you would need to bring in the other rules. Because what generally tends to happen is the 3 p.m. blackout would be removed, but none of the other things that you've recommended to help with the lower league clubs, the sort of equity release to the lower divisions would happen. I guarantee it would be just right. It would just be right 3 p.m. Oh, we've forgotten about all the rest of it. I think John has a really good point, and that's the whole reason the 3 p.m. ban is in place anyway, is to help the lower league clubs. And I think there is something to be said for actually just going to a cold and wet, windy 4th division game, to use old terminology, and it's.
Well, perhaps you would write it in a way that, because I'm sure everyone knows my political views. I'm a fairly left-wing person. I think that if you were going to pragmatically do this in today's world, you would perhaps say to clubs benefiting from being able to broadcast their games at 3 p.m, you will give X amount of the proceeds you are getting from the broadcaster to, like a stipend package, right? Like a package that, a bit like how clubs on paper have to give money to the lower league, the Championship, League One and such, but you'd enforce it more strictly. And again, I agree that it would be tough to implement in our current economy because of the way that inequality is so baked into the system. But in terms of a principle of a thing, I think we should be using our technology to make as many things as possible broadcastable. In fact, I would even say that we should start broadcasting some of the stuff further down the table too, right? We should start giving an eye and a window to people who aren't necessarily at the top of the game to show that actually there is a life of football beyond that of the upper echelons.
Isn't there a danger though of broadcasting everything and fewer people going to grounds because they can see them on the telly?
Not necessarily broadcasting it live, but if you give more resources to these lower league clubs, they're able to firstly keep the ground open and not have it washed away and stuff, but secondly, not have to worry so intensely about being able to afford the bills they're paying to keep the club going and such, right? And then that lets them be in the community more and draw in the crowds naturally from people in the local area who maybe would be able to go to games if there was the infrastructure there to be able to support them.
Well, that would be great, but that wouldn't happen, in my view. I mean, it's a carnival of greed, this stuff. So if there were lots of Premiership games suddenly broadcast at 3 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon by Sky, TNT, BT, creaming off all the money, all go back into the Premiership, mostly the big clubs, and the lower league football would wither on the vine. I'm sure of it. There's no way that even through regulation that money would trickle down. You know, we know what trickle-down economics is usually like. It stops at the first level. It wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't, and it would ruin the game. So I have a very strong view on it. The more I think about it, I always remember, like this at the beginning, I'm not now.
To be honest with you, I've gone the other way. I was a bit more 50-50, and now I'm more in favour of scrapping it, but scrapping it with reforms to make sure that they are, some way where we are funding those lower leagues a lot better somehow, I guess.
And ending capitalism.
Yeah. We need a Bolshevik style revenue. No. I would also say my opinions on this have more crystallized after the last few years of living abroad, because I can watch every single match on the Premier League. I can watch all the games on multiple screens legally. And I can spend my whole day just watching the 3 p.m. games and all the other games I want. I don't even, literally every single Premier League game I can watch. And every time I go back to the UK, it feels jarring that I can't do that. And so to me, there is that sense of the whole world is getting to enjoy the fruits of one of our most kind of precious industries, our football industry, and they're getting to enjoy our culture like this, and we're not really being able to do that to the extent that we are going to the games, but millions of people around the country can't go to those games or don't go to those games or are getting priced out of those games.
But if you're living in Worthing or Scunthorpe or anywhere else, it's a different picture. And it would seriously affect those local clubs. I get it abroad, yeah.
But equally, it's all very well giving money to these clubs to stop because you're not getting the fans in anymore. We'll give you some money, but grounds are better anyway. The whole atmosphere is better with more fans. So there may be fewer fans, but it's okay because we've given them an extra few 100,000.
Are there really that many people that aren't
Yeah, exactly.
I think there are.
that aren't thinking, okay, I can't watch Premier League games, so I'm going to go to the is that really the driving?
Well, I mean, in the 90s, I came down to Brighton, and I was a Newcastle United fan. Obviously, I would have gone anyway, but just over the road was a struggling fourth division team, and so I went to the Goldstone Ground and became hooked on that club. But there was never a clash, and there certainly were no televised 3 p.m. games. But if there had been, would I have sat in and watched Newcastle every week instead of going to see Brighton and Hove Albion? I don't know.
My counter argument to that is, like, I think for a lot of people, the experience of going to a game is special anyway. So for me, I love going to watch live football in a stadium. I don't get to do it so much, sadly, anymore. I honestly don't think I would stay home to watch a Premier League game at the expense of going to a stadium to watch a match. And especially if the barrier to watching the match on TV is just the barrier of me not able to watch it on Sky Sports. Do you know what I mean? Like
you have jumped through hoops to watch Brighton games, every single Brighton game. There was once you said to me, "Oh, I've been invited out to by somebody, but it clashes with Brighton v Wolves or something. What should I do?" I remember thinking, just go to that thing. So all I'm saying is, there's no way you would have missed, and there are many fans like you would miss any games for your club over going to the stadium to watch the club just down the road, or Worthing Football Club, or Crawley, or Lewis. I don't think you would have. You would stay in and watch Brighton in a 0-0 draw with, I guarantee you would.
I maybe to an extent. I just think to most people, especially if the discouragement of them staying home and not going to the game isn't even the case that the Premier League game they're not able to watch that game. It's just that they're not able to watch it legally. I don't think that's that much of a discouragement anymore, to be honest with you. Anyway, I think we. Sorry, I was going to say.
Done is disagree on this, which I think is quite good, actually.
Yeah.
It's our sharpest debate so far.
We haven't fixed this issue yet,
No.
so we'll let the FA know not to make any massive reforms just yet.
Don't kill non-league football. That's all I say.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one, because we are taking a long time on each topic. Hopefully we can do a few more. The next one that I thought we could discuss is if we bring in a challenge system on VAR. So obviously, we wanted to talk about VAR in some capacity or some ways in which the matches are refereed, or how VAR is used. And I think this is often used as a potential way to kind of fix VAR, not overusing it, not overanalyzing everything, not referring to Stockley Park too much, but having a system which VAR can be used, but somewhat sparingly, I guess. So let's maybe we'll do a vote on that. So who thinks we should bring in a challenge system for VAR?
2 thumbs up for me. Love the idea.
I'm 50-50 thumbs down.
I'm not sure. So
I'm going thumbs down. I'm going thumbs down.
Okay.
50-50.
All sides of the spectrum. Yeah, that's good.
Owen, why don't you kick us off then if you're in favour of it?
So one of the big complaints about VAR is the time eaten up waiting for various bodies to dither. And it's time which is not really coming from anywhere, right? It's some external force which is doing it. If you're in the stadium itself and there's a VAR check going on, you're in the dark, basically. There's a screen that says a check's ongoing. You don't know what's happening. In sports like cricket, the captain has the power to review a decision that they don't like. And that could be something that would massively transform how VAR is interpreted. In cricket, the umpire is speaking on the comms. There's clearly a way of knowing what is happening because the captain has to do a sign, they review, and then it goes up to the third umpire. if the captain did this in football, firstly, it would give the captain real authority. It would make them have to be someone that's intelligent, someone that knows how to manage emotions, someone who's a genuine leader that has to listen to different sides of their teammates arguing and such to be able to then present a case to the referee. Secondly, this makes it more entertaining for the crowds too, because if you can see that the captain has done this, if it's your team, it's like, yeah, we've got a chance here. If it's not, then it adds to the pantomime. It's like we can boo not the officials as such, but the captain that has decided to pull up this decision. And then thirdly, it means that instead of it coming after, so many times it's like some slowed down, ridiculous angle, arbitrary, what is your interpretation of this millimeter, like you said earlier, right? The toenail in front of the line.
That's
it can
right.
be something which is genuinely used for cases that want reviewing. So if the captain feels they've been cheated out of a penalty, they can review it, and there's a chance of them to win a penalty. And if they don't get it, then you've blown your reviews. Now you can't eat up time later in the game on a similar thing. I think it could be massively transformative for how the tech is used and give more importance to the role of captain in the sport.
Yeah, it's an interesting argument actually, and I haven't thought of it quite like that. Yeah. Okay.
Challenges to it. What do you guys think?
Did you say would they have a number of challenges available?
Yes,
they have a maximum.
Yeah. Like in cricket, if you burn through your reviews, then you've been a poor captain, right? Like it's the responsibility is on you. And then obviously, if you've got the decision overturned, you keep it again for later because you were wrong.
Yeah, the way it works in tennis and cricket. But surely, if the argument for VAR is we have to get everything right, which I don't necessarily agree with, but that's the argument for it. You could get to the point where your captain has burnt out his 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever challenges by the 65th minute.
3.
And in or 3. And in the 73rd minute, an absolutely glaring howler happens and they don't get the decision because everybody can see off the field that it was the refs given the wrong decision, but VAR can't step in, and you're back to the way we were before VAR because your captain has burnt through all these. And so you have an artificial barrier. So it would be an interesting debate after that. How can this be? We have VAR. They weren't allowed to use it because Fred Bloggs used he squandered them all in the first half.
I also think that a captain in football is much more removed from the game and the decisions than in, say, cricket. And I think you could quite easily have the situation where something happens in a game and in the heat of the moment at full speed, it looks a bit contentious and it goes one way. And then the captain decides, okay, well, I'm going to challenge this. But then everyone else at home or on their phones in the stadium can look at the replay and go, oh no, the referee has got this bang on. Like, there's no way this is getting overturned. The captain can't see that. So then they're challenging it when everyone knows they're wrong to challenge it. So then that creates a bit of a divide between the captain and the rest of the and the fans. And I just think it's an extra layer of like finickiness that would overcomplicate VAR.
That is true in all the other sports of that season as well, right? The captain in a cricket game is just as capable of making an emotional decision and just as capable of there being a decision wrongly made by the umpires but could have been overturned. However, you would massively... it's an unlikely situation that it's all reviews are gone and then this happens. What's more likely is, so for instance, Frank Lampard's ghost goal in the 2010 World Cup against Germany.
Yeah.
Hideous decision. Everyone saw it happen. In a proper, if my proposal was implemented, I think Stephen Gerrard was the captain at that time. He could just say, well, okay, we're going to review this. England get the goal. It's 2-2. Maybe England beat Germany. Maybe Capello lifts the World Cup with England after all this time. And I think
that's been resolved by goal line technology.
Yeah, that particular one.
You'd have that alongside it. Another one might be the Luis Suarez handball on the line at the same World Cup. Officials missed that. everyone on the Ghana team saw it. Suarez knew he'd done it as
No,
well because he was
no.
celebrating.
No. He got sent off.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah, he
got sent off. That was
yeah,
correctly
sorry.
given.
Sorry.
It was correctly
Yeah,
given
yeah,
as a
yeah,
penalty.
yeah.
All that happened was
I was thinking-
Ghana missed the penalty. The correct
my mistake. I meant
decision was
Thierry
made.
Henry against Ireland in the World Cup playoff.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of, where the officials did miss it.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Handled it.
Or
In
Maradona
that
against
case,
England.
Robbie Keane can go to the ref and say, right, watch this again, please. And the goal gets chalked off.
For me, it's something a bit different. So I've got another view on it. So what's happened, and you won't be surprised to learn that it's often generated by injustices done to your own team, but it's a way into it, isn't it? So recently it's the limbo for 3 or 4 minutes. It's the draining of the joy out of the game because somebody's fingernail is offside and it's looked at 47 times, and 3 minutes later the goal is given, and the kind of cheer is then a much lesser one. It's got to be more or less instantaneous. We have to stop this 75 different angles. So for me, the goal line technology is good. The ball in or out in any area of the field is good. Those can be given very, very quickly. Otherwise, it's going to, my view, is it has to be a clear and obvious error. If there's any margin for doubt, even if it, because it's never going to be yes, it is, or no, it isn't on the very marginal decisions. So unless something is a clear and obvious error, it should not be reviewed for me. Now, there have been mechanisms to put parameters around that, but at the moment, it's just dominating far too much of the game and draining the spontaneity out of it.
I think the clear and obvious thing is often used, but I always think that it's such a subjective and qualitative kind of term that you're drawing the line at some point from you're drawing the line anyway of this is a correct decision, this isn't a correct decision. At some point, then you have to draw the line of this is clear and obvious and this isn't clear and obvious. And I think that's not always apparent.
We allow for doubt in all fields of life. And people just have to suck it up. Okay, it looks like, the foremost stud on his boot was probably offside. So what? Who would ever have seen that in the days before VAR?
Yeah,
if they're clearly offside, fine. And I know that you have to draw the line somewhere, but isn't that the case with everything in life? If we go on thinking that we can achieve perfection in every single decision, then this nonsense about 2, 3, 4 minute reviews will go on and on and on. And
that's why you'd have it as the captains doing reviews, because they would be the ones saying, we think something is so wrong here, but we need to take this to review. You'd have
that's a good idea. Yeah.
Can I challenge that again though? I think this adds time onto the VAR checks, because if you have a VAR check and the captain then has to decide whether or not to do it, there's a good chance the captain's not anywhere near that decision. If it's an attacker in the attacking box and they are a centre half, that means the captain has to then probably run over to what's happened to the player it's happened to, discuss it with them, and then they're probably going to run over to the manager where they have those little screens, and then he's going to look at it for another couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think if the
captain is the goalkeeper,
Sorry?
If the captain's the goalkeeper and it looks like something's happened on the other end of the pitch, Dan's right. He wouldn't have a clue. And then there'd be players coming over to the captain and saying that, go review that. He's going to have to then.
Who's going to be involved? Like that's for the team to sort out.
I think it changes the role of a captain quite a lot to basically be.
It would give them more responsibility.
I just find it. A lot of our discussions talk about the fact that we don't want to be changing so much about football, but I think this actually changes a massive part of what a captain is. A captain, we're changing the role of a captain to being a leader on the pitch, to being someone who's a quasi-referee almost, where they're able to spot decisions from the other side of the pitch and know whether or not they, and I think that's more of a. I think once that's implemented, that's more of a change than we're kind of thinking it might might be. You know,
we are seeing some. I mean, at the moment in the Premier League, the captain is the only person who can really discuss at length with the referee. Like you see at the moment, captains having to usher away their teammates because they'll get booked if they start haranguing the refs, which I would say is a largely good thing, right? Like it stops refs being swamped in players yelling in their face and such.
Roy Keane
so
kind of,
This would make the captain someone who, yes, has to be a good communicator, has to be someone that is responsible for the on-field management of a team, and has to think, okay, this my teammate is running at me saying, yeah, review, I was not offside or whatever. Is this something that you're going to be able to do? And ultimately, I think that makes it, it does give them more responsibility and such. But a lot of the time, we see Sorry
to just stop your flow. I was just thinking of moments within the team where a forward comes running up to the captain saying, review it, I wasn't offside, and the captain says, nah, I think you were. And imagine the bust up between the teammates at that point. No, I'm not wasting a review on that.
Like Cristiano Ronaldo is the captain of Portugal, largely because he's Cristiano Ronaldo, right? He's probably, if you were going to really scrutinise it, not the best fit for captain, as the elbowing the other day probably suggests. This might make a team think, we need someone who's slightly more composed and sensible to be our leader.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The trouble is, what if it was the manager?
Sorry?
What if it was the manager on the side of the pitch, not the captain? Yeah,
that's interesting. I think that is maybe taking it a bit out of the field of play to a degree. Maybe you'd maybe as well they'd have that introduces the idea that they'd have more tech to influence their decisions and such. I think to be honest, I don't mind who does the reviewing. I think it's just a good idea to have implemented.
But would we still want it brought down from, if they can't find anything wrong with the goal within 30 seconds, then, because I would rather have that in place. If they can't find anything wrong with the goal,
I disagree with that as well. The idea that you need to have a limit on the VAR systems, because people already freak out. I think VAR either has to be something that you're doing. You can't have the correct decisions made quickly as much as people want. You either get a decision quickly, or you get a decision correctly sometimes. And I think if you give someone 30 seconds to make a decision on like a slightly contentious foul, the amount of pressure that would be on that one person making that decision with 80,000 people screaming at them, I don't think they would.
Surely they would go with the on-field decision then. If they can't do it in the 30 seconds, then we're back to it was one of those fluid maybe, and both sides are going to disagree. So therefore, whatever the on-field decision is, that's what the ref is for. The ref's always been there.
If the
30 years of football, that worked.
If the captain's unhappy with the ref's on-field decision, they then review it, and that's when, as you've said, Dan, the VAR team can take their time thinking about it a little bit. But that has been established through the convention of the review. The fans then know what's going on, and they'll understand that, okay, this is, there's something extra happening here, a bit like in the other sports. It's different now because essentially there's an external body that no one knows what is happening with it, basically saying, hold up, guys, we're off in Stockley Park deciding what's going to happen with this, and we can't really translate that to audiences.
And what's more, I think that when there have been those very, very marginal decisions that have taken 2, 3, 4 minutes occasionally, I know that's an outlier, but when you still don't get people agreeing, if that always then resulted in a correct and accurate decision, there might be some merit in it. But even then, people are saying, well, that absolutely wasn't, So you will never, ever, ever come to a level of certainty which is 100% foolproof. So we're kidding ourselves if we think that we can always make a correct decision, because you absolutely can't.
The whole point of the premise of the sport was the referee is there to arbitrate. And that worked for 130 odd years, 140 years. And then suddenly that's not been good enough. And
but the game's different nowadays. Now there's people watching, millions of people around the world watching it on screens that the referee doesn't have, and they're dissecting it in a way that they weren't doing 100 years ago.
And by having the reviews as well, you'd because the ref's still in charge, right? And in this time, it's only where the captain and the team feel there's an issue is where it gets brought up. It's like in cricket, the umpire is still absolutely in charge. It's only for those millimeter decisions that it gets reviewed. And because you don't give captain like 100 views, he's only got a few. So they've got to be absolutely certain they're challenging the rest legitimately. Otherwise, too bad, you've blown them. And as you said earlier, if there is a horrible decision that is gone against you, too bad. You challenged the ref wrongly too many times. And now, joke's on you.
Get on with it.
Let's move on to the next. Let's do one more.
So we had two.
Well, we had quite a few topics, so maybe we can do another episode soon. Maybe let's do one quick more. One more quick one. So we were thinking of doing one on the FA Cup, and we were doing a few other kind of bigger topics. But let's do one of these little quicker ones that I wrote down. So this one, not all fouls in the box should be a penalty. So it's
interesting.
An idea that I saw suggested by a pundit on the BBC actually, and they suggested that a lot of the time, if it would be the case that a player runs into the box and they are slightly tripped, or they are able to manufacture a foul somehow that potentially is a foul, but only when VAR is looking at it in a microscopic lens, it then leads to a chance of a goal of 90%, even if the foul was just on the edge of the box in the corner. And so I think, if you bring in a system whereby maybe there's an indirect free kick in the box, or if there's, another way of providing them with a foul or a free kick without it necessarily being a penalty, I would be quite in favour of that, I think. But,
haven't we got that already? I don't think isn't there an indirect free kick?
I was just thinking that.
There is.
If I'm a defender and I pass it to my keeper and the keeper picks
No. Yes, for that one, but I mean if there's like a foul, like as in if someone is fouled in the box, or if there is a certain instance where the referee can say this is a foul in the box, but it doesn't warrant a penalty. It warrants an indirect free kick.
But where's his line? Where's the line drawn between it warrants a penalty and it doesn't warrant a penalty?
How about you put it to the discretion of the referee, I guess.
So that would be.
All right. Okay.
You're going to get sort of. Let's just pick two clubs at random. You're going to get Arsenal fans one week saying you didn't give a penalty for it here. You gave us a free kick, but last week you gave Manchester City one for this very similar.
It'd be great fun. How fun would that be? It'd be great fun, and it would always be Arsenal fans, wouldn't it? Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's vote. I'm going to go 50-50 to thumbs up, I think.
No, I don't like this one.
No. All right. Well, what are your arguments against it then?
Because I don't know where the arbitrary line is. I suppose if you're saying sometimes you've got to defend a player running away from the goal. He's not facing the goal. He's down by the touch line in the penalty area, and he's actually got his back to goal and blah blah blah. And the defender accidentally just taps him on the back of the calf.
So that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And he goes down. He's not facing the goal. He's about to. Well, he goes down because he has been kicked, and that seems to be given nowadays. But he's not facing the goal, and he wasn't about to score. I suppose we're looking at, is it likely to be a goal-scoring opportunity?
Yeah,
that has been stopped. So we're back to the old dog zone.
Nah, I think it brings too much complication and too much interpretation in, and it would be another layer of great kind of, lots of contention that's been discussed for weeks and weeks and weeks. And Man City get them all, and Brighton don't, and all the rest of it. I don't, I think it's just too complicated.
Okay, my counter argument to that is it would challenge one of the big issues that we have in modern football, is that as soon as a player runs into the box, they know that if they can dive or maybe not dive nowadays, if they can manufacture a foul, they can get a penalty. Which means that when players run into the box nowadays, I almost feel like their concern isn't trying to score a goal or create a goal; it's to create a situation where the opponent will foul them. And I'm terrified when an opponent now is playing on the edge of Brighton's box, because I think there's no way they're going to score from there. But it just has to be one lazy, one lazy foot, and it's a penalty. And I think this would challenge that, and it would mean that even if you're running into the box and someone's fouling you, if you think, well, now I've just got an indirect free kick, it's not a better situation than I'm in now, I'll try and actually score this goal. I think that's quite a good idea, to be honest. I'm not saying it's perfect. I do think it does add another layer of complexity, and referees have to have some amount of discretion in when a situation is a penalty and when it's not a penalty. But I don't know. I think that could be quite fun as well, I guess.
Can you imagine the length of VAR though going on with those? Because the referee now has not only to work out whether he was actually kicked it slightly in the ankle as he went past, but also analyze it to see whether he was likely to score a goal at that point, or whether he was just moving away from goal when that happened.
But a foul in the box is always checked by VAR anyway, so they're already checking it.
True.
I think that when you first said it, I was thinking this is horrible, right? Like if you've been fouled in a box, then you've won a penalty, and the defender should have been more careful, right? Like the defender can't say, oh well, they were looking for contact and it's a foul. Like you've got a penalty, but the one thing that I'm thinking this might in some form be useful, even though I did vote no, would be for handballs, because there are many times I think that a defender it's come off their hand and then gone out for a corner, and the argument's been, well, it was in a certain way, it wasn't a foul because XYZ, but they did use their arm to stop the ball going where the attacker wanted it, and then got away with it through the attack being concentrated elsewhere. Maybe the only way I could sort of see this being somewhat feasible is if you gave indirect free kicks for, say, where the player's running and their arms come out from their body and it's come off it, and it's not, say, on the edge of a box going in, if the cross has been blocked by the arm. But even then, I'm thinking, as we've sort of said, this is a lot to ask of referees, when the whole point of the box is that once you're in this sensitive attacking zone, the attacking team is so close that a foul here warrants a penalty.
And I think it is a world of difference. It's the unnatural position, isn't it? Whatever that means. But I think we kind of know what the intention of that is. Now, if you've got your hands in front of your body like this, and the ball bounces off your hand, that's one thing. But if you're like this or this, even if you're trying to just rebalance yourself, it's come off your hand, hasn't it? I just think, I'm not convinced. I think this would just lead endless kind of rows and debates and diabolical decisions and all the rest of the panoply of stuff we get.
I think we should do it, and I think I'm winning Owen over. He's starting to agree with me. No, I think it's an idea I've seen a couple of times, and I would be in favour of them at least exploring it with, say, trials, I guess, and seeing what it would do to change the. I'm sick of that, of the ease of winning a penalty, and then that changes the game so significantly. And I think VAR has made that worse, because it means that a player knows all they have to look for now is just a brush on the leg, and they can jump over and get a penalty. So what I
and very quickly, it's sort of related, but I love what we've lost in football is that moment when you think, oh, did we give a penalty away there? God, you got away with that tackle, and the ball goes back up the other end of the field, and you're sort of your own team, and you're thinking, we might have got away with that, but thank goodness that's over. Now you just spend the next 5 minutes thinking, is it going to be called back for that? Is all of what we're watching irrelevant now because there's a bit of a question mark over what's happened about 2 minutes earlier in the penalty area? I really hate that.
While the referee goes over to the onside screen and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
See, I'm winning you over now. I'm bringing you over to my side of it.
No, you've identified a real problem, I think, Dan, about the brush on the ankle, which results in, it's not simulation exactly, but something it's right in that grey zone in the middle.
It's that whole.
What to do about it is much more difficult, I think.
Yeah.
Let's. If I were a fan, and so Fulham have got into the box and we're actually about to, do something great, and there's a foul, it's like, yes, we've got a penalty, and then the ref's like, no, foul's over here. Actually, we're having an indirect free kick. Like, I'd be just so cross.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah,
I've only
gave
ever
a penalty
seen,
to them. Yeah.
I've only ever seen one player score an indirect free kick from that sort of position, and that was Alan Shearer for England, where he just leathered it. So it was tapped to him on the right, and he just wellied it over the wall on the line into the back of the net, and that was back in the 90s. But all the others tend to end up being smothered in some way by players on the goal line. And
I think when you've got an indirect free kick like that, just blast it towards the crowd of players. It's going to go in off someone, isn't it? But nobody ever seems to do that. But that's
what Shearer did that day, and he just kind of wellied it over the top of them into the top of the net.
Let's agree to disagree on that then, but maybe in our next episode we can come up with a solution to that issue. yeah, but I was bringing you all around. Give me an extra hour, I would have convinced you. I think that was a good episode. Let's do another debate again soon, because we came up with a bunch of topics and we didn't get around to a load of them. So let's do this again. Thank you all for coming along to this episode. And thank you to the listeners for sticking around for over an hour. I hope that was a good debate, and maybe next time we'll invest in some technology that can be better than thumbs up and thumbs down.
Red and yellow cards. And
red and yellow cards. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.